I think one of the most dangerous things that women do is that they normalize high functioning suffering. Welcome to Life and Love by Design. I'm life and relationship coach Odette Coronel. This podcast is for individuals and couples who are done living on autopilot, who are ready to understand the patterns shaping their relationships, their choices, and their sense of self, and redesign them with purpose and intention. Here, we don't just talk about what's hard. We name what's actually happening beneath it and what to do about it. And if you start recognizing yourself or your relationship in these conversations, know that this is the exact work that I do with my private coaching clients, individuals and couples who are ready for real change. Because a meaningful life and connected relationships don't happen by default. They're designed. So let's begin. Welcome back to Life and Love by Design. I'm Odette Coronel, and this is the podcast where we talk about how to live and love with purpose and intention and not by default. So I want to ask you a question. What if you're not burnt out from life, but actually from pretending like you're okay inside? What if the exhaustion that you're feeling from work, from the kids, from your relationships, from your responsibilities and your schedule and deadlines and all of that, what if all of that isn't really the reason, but it's really because you've been performing? You're like performing strength, you're performing happiness, you're performing patience, even performing gratitude. Like you're saying, I'm fine, you're pretending. And maybe no one even knows how much you're carrying because you've become so good at hiding it. So, today, what we're talking about is the kind of burnout that doesn't come from doing too much, but from suppressing so much. And this topic I feel is really important because so many women silently walk around believing that they're failing at life, that they're failing at motherhood, they're failing at being a wife, they're failing in their careers, when really they're just emotionally exhausted from living so disconnected from themselves and then pretending that they're okay. I think many women have just learned how to function really beautifully while quietly just falling apart internally. And, they still show up, they still smile, they still care for everyone else, they still answer the phone calls and the text messages, and they still go to work, they still support their partner, and they still just keep up with everything. But internally, they're actually feeling pretty numb. They're feeling disconnected. They're feeling irritable and uninspired and lonely and emotionally flat. But because they're still functioning, no one notices and realizes how much pain they're really in. I think one of the most dangerous things that women do is that they normalize high functioning suffering. So looking put together, but emotionally drowning. And honestly, many women have just been conditioned that composure equals wellness, that they have to override themselves constantly. So they just say, I'm just tired or I'm just stressed. It's just a really busy season or, it's menopause. But deep down, something is profoundly off. Their body feels heavy. Their joy feels completely inaccessible and the relationships feel emotionally distant. And their nervous system is really, really fried. If you're doing all the right things, you're showing up, you're holding it together, you're being capable and responsible, and yet something in your life and relationships or your marriage still feels off, then give me a few seconds of your time because this message is for you. Relationships don't usually fall apart because of one big event. More often, it's the small everyday moments when we stop being intentional, or we stop really listening, or we stop choosing connection. Those are the things that create distance over time. I work with thoughtful, high functioning individuals and couples who aren't broken, but they're feeling disconnected or misaligned or just wondering how they got here. In my coaching, we slow things down. We try to understand what's happening beneath the surface. We identify the patterns that are shaping your relationships and your choices, and then we intentionally design what comes next. So if you're listening and you're thinking, this feels like me, that's not an accident. I offer a complimentary relationship and life alignment audit. It's a focused 45-minute conversation where I'm going to help you gain clarity and identify what comes next. You can book your session by visiting odettecoronel.com. I would love to connect with you. And what's really fascinating is that burnout is not coming from the circumstances. It's really coming from suppression of the truth. Because let's face it, pretending is exhausting. And I think that a lot of us women learn very early in our lives that our emotions are inconvenient, that our emotions are too much. So instead of expressing sadness and anger and disappointment and loneliness and grief and resentment and confusion, they just learn how to become pleasant, how to be palatable, how to be easy, accommodating, low maintenance. Screw that. Because what happens is over time, many women actually become disconnected from what they genuinely feel and they become more focused on how they're perceived. Some women are exhausted because they're pretending that they're happy in their marriage, or they're pretending that they're fulfilled in their career. They're pretending that they're okay with doing everything around the house, or pretending that they're not hurt, pretending that they're not lonely, pretending that they don't deeply crave more in their life. And here is the big problem: you can pretend, but your body keeps the score. You can intellectually tell yourself and convince yourself that you're fine, but your nervous system is screaming at you that you are not fine. And sometimes women avoid honesty because honesty creates disruption. So if you admit, I'm unhappy, then what's going to happen? Or if you admit, this relationship doesn't feel emotionally safe for me anymore, then what? If you admit, I don't recognize myself anymore, then what? But actually, the truth is powerful because once you see it clearly, it becomes harder to tolerate what's misaligned. And I think that many women are not actually afraid of the truth. They're just afraid of what the truth might require. They're afraid it might require change or boundaries or grief or disappointing people or, God forbid, choosing yourself. It's when your outer presentation does not match your inner reality. And women do this all the time. You smile when you feel disconnected. You say, I'm good. Well, actually, you're barely holding yourself together. And you just continue giving while you're secretly feeling resentful. You keep nurturing everyone else while neglecting yourself emotionally. And eventually, your body starts to shut down. You lose desire, you lose creativity, presence, energy, libido, joy, all of that. And it's not because there's something wrong with you. It's just because your system is depleted from carrying an identity that it's no longer feels true for you. I think that many women have moments where they suddenly realize, I don't even know what I genuinely feel anymore, because they've spent so much time managing everyone else's emotions, expectations, and needs, comfort, perceptions, to the point where they've actually abandoned their own inner world. And sometimes healing begins with something incredibly simple: just telling yourself the truth, being honest with yourself. Healing is not always a dramatic life overhaul. Sometimes healing just looks like, admitting when you're exhausted, or admitting when you're lonely, admitting that you want more, admitting that you miss yourself, and admitting that you've been pretending. And I think there's something deeply liberating about finally becoming emotionally honest with yourself. Not performatively honest, not social media honest, but real honest. The kind of honesty that eventually is going to reconnect you with yourself. So if you have been feeling burnt out lately, I want you to gently ask yourself, what am I pretending not to know? What emotions have I been suppressing? Or where have I been abandoning myself? What kind of version of me am I exhausted from performing? Because, maybe your soul isn't asking you to work harder. Maybe it's asking you to stop pretending. And maybe your healing begins the moment that you stop trying to look okay and start becoming honest with yourself and with the people that you care about and that love you and that you love in your life. Thank you so much for being here with me today on Life and Love by Design. And if this episode resonated with you, I want you to please send it to a woman who has been carrying a lot silently. And if you're in a season of rediscovering yourself, reconnecting with your truth, or just navigating emotional exhaustion in your life or in your relationship, I would love to support you. You can book a complimentary consultation with me. The link is in the show notes. So until next time, remember that your life and your love are yours to design. If today's episode described you or your relationship, then this is your moment. You don't need more information. You need a new way of living, choosing, and relating. And that's the work I do with individuals and couples. If you're ready to stop repeating the same patterns and start designing your life and relationships intentionally, visit the link in the show notes and book a complimentary relationship and life audit. Remember, your life and your love are yours to design.